Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Shine.com and The Hindu, I welcome you to the 11th The Hindu Shine HR Conclave, the Chennai chapter. After a series of 10 successful conclaves across Hyderabad, Chennai, Bangalore, Pune, Mumbai, and Delhi, we are proud to present our 11th edition back again in Chennai. And the theme for the forthcoming discussions will be HR for India 3.0. In India, we are now clearly in a phase where the growth strategies of the past have to be re-examined, and every function has to re-evaluate how it will deliver value to the business. Perhaps it is the human resources function that will have to make the largest shift because it has to enable people to ride the challenges. This is what we call HR for India 3.0, where HR has to embrace new technologies, new strategies, and a new culture so that it can change with the changing times. At Shine.com, we are in the business of understanding HR challenges and providing HR teams with tools to solve them. This understanding of HR challenges has helped us create the world's first fully integrated recruitment solution, which puts together the power of database search, employer branding, and social media in one complete package. These conclaves are our way of keeping abreast with the latest thoughts in the HR domain, and we believe Shine.com will evolve and emerge stronger by doing so. With that message from Shine.com, may I now request Mr. Suresh Srinivasan, Vice President, The Hindu, to deliver the welcome note.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And at the very outset, I'd like to thank you for your presence. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank our presenting sponsor, Hindustan University, for being gracious to give us this opportunity to partner with them. And I also want to take this opportunity to welcome and thank our other partners who've been associated with us for this evening. The changing global economy is reshaping the times we live in and impacting businesses. It's changing the way we live, work, and play. Organizations are being forced to realign strategies in tandem with new emerging ecosystem. The Indian economy, too, is going through a period where change is fast, but growth is slow, necessitating businesses to walk that proverbial extra mile to ink growth. As a consequence, every function has had to relook its agenda to remain relevant within the new order and constantly innovate to remain ahead of competition. HR, as a custodian of people agenda, has been thrown into the forefront to lead the change and must deliver to a new metrics-based culture, even as it seeks to partner business that demands ROI metrics on every investment. Further, the demographic dividend has changed significantly with new millennial workforce coming in who answer to a different set of aspirations and needs. HR must also harness new technologies to ensure that it remains on the cutting edge. There is hence a clarion call for HR to quickly build capability to lead the change, even as it grapples with these new challenges. Yesterday's Business Line carried an interesting article, Put Some Heart into HR, urging the HR teams to put some dill into the company and its employees. The author, a former head of emerging markets of an MNC telco, was referring that HR needs to go back to its roots and bring meaning to the workflows and in a way get the dill back. By dill, it's diversity, inclusion, and loyalty. In this context, the Hindu HR Shine HR Conclave today seeks to discuss, debate, and bring fresh insights into how HR can evolve to lead India into a phase 3.0 of business. This decade, wherein companies are challenged both on performance and people, how can HR make an impactful contribution? besides talent acquisition, talent development and management, which are definitely large, encompassing, and time-consuming arenas of work where HR gets deeply involved in, can HR play meaningful roles in business policy and strategy, operational efficiency improvement, brand building, and in preparing the organization for tomorrow? Where does HR stand on these, and what is the road ahead? How can HR get Dil at work? As industry experts debate on these topics, I'm sure the end of the conclave will bring to us to a sharper understanding of how HR can best manage India's growth challenge, along with dealing with emerging trends and technologies. The Hindu, in partnership with Shine.com, will continue in the endeavor to build India's growth strategy by organizing similar platforms of interaction where industry leaders and experts can map India's path on global scale. We also look forward to your continued enthusiastic participation of these forums, so together we can do our bit to lead India towards the path of HR for India 3.0. With this, I'd like to once again thank you for your participation and welcome you to the HR Conclave. Thank you so much.
I now invite Commodore S. Shekhar, Joint Director of the Center for Defense Technology Studies, Hindustan University, to deliver the opening address. Commodore S. Shekhar has graduated from the National Defense Academy, Khadakwasla, and is also an electrical and electronics engineer from the Naval Engineering College, Lonavla. He is a postgraduate in electrical and weapon system engineering from the Naval Electrical and Weapon System Establishment, Jamnagar, and holds a master's degree in defense and strategic studies from Allahabad University. He has an MPhil degree in defense and strategic studies from the University of Madras. In his professional career of several decades, Commodore Shekhar has pioneered managerial transformation by leading from the front in various high-stress, high-risk positions of authority and responsibility, both in the Indian Navy and in the corporate sector. Commodore S. Shekhar.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is merely a coincidence that tomorrow is Navy Day. And we celebrate Navy Day on the 4th of December because it was in 1971 that the Indian Navy actually played a significant role in combat. I'm a submariner, and I spent 21 days dived off Karachi on the Makaran coast during the 1971 operations, but more of that later. I'm honored to be given this opportunity to share my thoughts with you at this HR Summit. I represent Hindustan University, a reputed institution of higher learning in the technology domain. In fact, the starting point of the human resource food chain. I've also served for 3 decades in the institution or organization which depends on the human resource for delivering its objectives, the armed forces. The maxim of the armed forces being not the gun, but the man behind the gun. As such, I've watched the evolution of the human resource function over several decades, from several functions at several levels, and I think I have something to say to you. If we were to step back in history and look at what we could perhaps refer to as the HR or human resource version 1.0, we would see that the evolution of human resource management is analogous to that of the quality management, and can be traced back to the days of the Industrial Revolution. As shop floor activities expanded from those of small groups of operatives to larger numbers and then to shifts, the output of the personnel had to be managed. Indeed, line supervisors were the first personnel managers. As the complexities of the production process increased, the human side of personnel management acquired a separate dimension, with workers beginning to assert their rights, becoming more conscious of their privileges, the trade union movement picking up, it became imperative that management had to learn how to relate with the representatives of trade unions and the like, giving rise to the need for industrial relations. The 20th century orientation was priority to profit and production rather than to personnel, personnel management seen as a staff rather than a line function, the industrial climate of confrontation rather than collaboration, and management and staff subjected to a us versus them syndrome. The 21st century orientation is that business success can be achieved only with the integration of all efforts of the organization towards customer satisfaction at economical levels and consists of enunciating, initiating, developing, and maintaining the quality of people, processes, and products. Where are we today? I feel that it is time to seriously examine the effectiveness of the human resource development function as practiced today by comparing it with a simple manufacturing process. The manufacturing process depends on three pillars of planning, production, and quality control. One of the elementary tenets of planning is to start with the end in mind. In respect of HR, what does the organization want to achieve through its human resource? What are the functions involved in achieving this? Who are the people to contribute to it? A company's strategic thinking and its organizational capability are interdependent if it is to rise to the challenges and respond to the changes needed to survive, grow, and prosper in the 21st century. If you look at the HR from the production perspective, three aspects emerge: raw material, conversion, and finished product. The raw material for the human resource function actually comes from education institutions like ours. But apart from deciding on which institutions to carry out their campus interviews, what is the ongoing interaction between industry and academia on essential activities such as curriculum design, investments in laboratories, award of research projects, summer internships, etc. And how many HR managers arrange for their functional heads to deliver lectures at our academic institutions where there is a two-way exchange of thoughts and suggestions. The conversion for the HR function consists of the many processes employed in the organization for activities. I could be carrying coal to Newcastle, recruitment, induction, performance, assessment, promotions, etc., etc. However, if we want to justify the word development, how many of us can say that we are carrying this out effectively? I have conducted training programs in organizations for soft skills, and training managers have lamented that they have not obtained the cooperation of line managers to depute their production floor workers or whatever to training programs, even though they are promulgated well in time. And now for the final product. In my view, the final product of the HR process is the empowered employee. While the word empowerment itself is loosely bandied about, a possible definition in the context of HR 3.0 could be the enabling of an employee to rise to his or her level of capability and desire within the parameters of the organization's goal. How much is all above actually being practiced by HR can be judged by the third production function, which is quality control. While all organizations have various degrees of performance assessment, policies, and procedures in place, I feel that where a lot needs to be done is in the actual implementation. Performance assessment is, after all, one of the direct functions of the line manager. Are our line managers trained on effective performance assessment? Bloom's taxonomy, Kirkpatrick model could well be names of latest fiction bestsellers. And for that matter, are managers, line or staff assessed on their ability and performance on assessment? Ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, I would like to leave a thought for your consideration. I am sure that today's deliberations are aimed at creating a modern India from the HR perspective. But a modern India can only grow and develop in a secure India. The defense budget of this country for fiscal year 2013-14 is 2 lakh crore Indian rupees. 1.7 lakh crores everybody is familiar with. But 2 lakh crores, I don't think many of us are aware. The defense budget of the country is being 2 lakh crores. This calls for a robust defense industry and, in turn, for the creation of a cadre of qualified and competent professionals in the defense technology management domain. I am proud to announce that Hindustan University has taken a strategic step in addressing this demand by establishing India's first ever Center for Defense Technology Studies in the private sector. Thank you for your patient attention. Jai Hind.
I now invite our panelists and moderator to begin the panel discussion. Let me introduce the moderator for today's panel, Indranil Chakraborty, founder, Storyworks. Indranil Chakraborty is a self-confessed holiday addict professional with over 21 years of experience in the corporate world before striking out on his own recently. His formative years and 2/3 of his career were spent in Unilever, in India and abroad. He was a global brand director when he decided to make a change. The next 7 years were spent in selling teddy bears, airtime, and holidays. Indranil's last assignment was at Mahindra Holidays as their CMO. Indranil has now founded Storyworks, the first Indian company formally focusing exclusively on business storytelling. Storyworks harnesses the natural power of stories to help corporates make their strategy stick with employees at all levels of the organization. They also coach leaders to become better storytellers. Indranil. I now invite Arokya Sagayaraj, Head HR and Communication, Renault Nissan Technology and Business Center, India Private Limited. Arokya holds a master's degree in social works. He is a transformational and people-oriented HR professional with over 15 years of experience in HR and communication. He has diverse management experience across functions ranging from sales and marketing, manufacturing, IT and engineering in the automotive space. He is actively involved in shaping the company's long-term HR vision and strategy and is responsible for fostering a work environment that is entrepreneurial, customer-focused, and result-oriented. I now invite Dharmarajan Narayana, VP and Head HR L&T Limited. Dharmarajan is a postgraduate in Personal Management and Industrial Relations from the Tata Institute of Social Sciences, with over 30 years of experience in human resource management and industrial relations, including assignments in Johnson & Johnson, Unilever Group, Britannia, and KEC International. Currently, he is Vice President and Head HR of L&T Construction, Buildings and Factories Independent Company. In his current assignment, he has been involved, among other HR practices, in substantial scaling up of niche talent arising out of the aggressive growth of the buildings and factories IC business. I now invite K. Ganeshan, VP HR, Tata Consultancy Services. Ganesh is a postgraduate in HR and holds a diploma in training and development. He is an alumnus of DG Vaishnav and Madras School of Social Work in Chennai, India. During his 22-year stint in TCS, Ganesh has handled a wide variety of roles and responsibilities, including recruitment, performance management, and was also the head of the Human Resources Allocation section of TCS in Chennai. He set up the HR function in UK in 1996. Until 1999, he handled the recruitment, immigration, and talent management for TCS UK. He is on the board of studies of many engineering colleges and management institutions. I now invite Murthy Upalluri, CEO Randstad India. Murthy is a successful business leader of global standing and heads India's leading HR services organization, Randstad India. He has a commendable track record of building profitable businesses and organizational capability. With over 23 years of domestic and international experience with Fortune 50 organizations like Microsoft, GE, and other industry-leading companies, he has experience of diverse sectors like engineering, technology, and manufacturing. He is credited with evolving business strategy, growing market share, improving processes and operational excellence, driving innovation, and fostering a customer-centric culture in the organizations he has worked for. I now invite Richa Pandey, Head HR and Chief Transformation Officer, Ramco Systems. Richa is a doctorate in organizational behavior from University of Delhi and has over 20 years of experience in the field of HR. She has also been visiting faculty in organizational behavior in management institutes like MDI Gurgaon, LIBA Chennai, SCM HRD Pune, and SIMS Pune, to name a few. As a business partner, Richa is responsible for employee engagement, business engagement, and customer engagement. Some of our key corporate HR initiatives have been employee value proposition, transitioning to a role-based organization, and an attrition prediction tool. I now request Indranil to take over today's panel discussion.
Thank you, Dipto. Good evening. Yeah. I am really happy to be here and also very humbled by the panelists that we have with us today. I think we've been very lucky to be able to put together a very diverse set of people with cross-industry, cross-country experience. I don't think I have been in too many panel discussions where we've had so many industries represented. We have IT services, automotive, construction, and HR services. So I think we will have a very rich conversation today, and I hope by the end of it all, we will take back something that we can chew and digest and use as we go into work tomorrow morning. So what are we talking about today? India, HR in India 3.0. So let's try and define what was India 1.0 and 2.0. So India 1.0 was really pre-liberalization and whatever it took to do business in those days of the license Raj and stuff like that. And I would imagine a lot of HR those days were involved in IR rather than HR. And then is the early 90s, the heady days of growth where everything anyone ever touched grew. Yeah, and one could sort of pander to every demand that any business part of the business had, from resources of people or technology. And then in the recent few years, India 3.0, what is now called the VUCA world, or the volatile, uncertain, ambiguous sort of world. And we believe that this volatility, uncertainty is here to stay. The ambiguity, complexity is here to stay. And so what is it doing to businesses today? What it is doing is that it is making businesses examine every kind of cost that there is in the organization. It is making businesses ask anyone who requires any resources, whether it's people, technology, any other investment, to justify those investments. So where does that leave us in HR? What it then does is puts the onus back on us to figure out how do we metricize and measure all the resources that we demand and put in place, and in that, how do we partner businesses' demands for ROI on everything? And while we do that, we see two underlying trends that are also both challenge and an opportunity. One is a trend of a ever younger workforce. Yeah, we keep talking about Gen Y and Gen Z, etc. Here is a set of people who are perhaps different from what India 2.0 and 1.0 saw. People with perhaps shorter horizons, people who require far more immediate gratification, people who are far more connected, etc. So what does that mean to the topic that we are talking about? And finally, the great plus of technology, technology that is making us able to measure and various indices, various metrics. And so the question to the panel today is, how do they see HR actually keeping in step with all these changes and reacting to the requirements of the business today? I'll start by asking each of the panelists to share the beginning thoughts and then throw the panel open for discussions on the subject that we just said. So could we start with you, Ganeshan?
Yeah. Hi, good evening. Interesting topic, but I have a slight view on this. The moment you start putting HR into versions, I have a fundamental problem. Because I have experience of both in manufacturing and IT now, and I heard many of the speakers now and before saying that version 1 is not applicable in version 3 or maybe not required. There are some few etiquettes from an HR perspective, things which has not changed. So I just want to keep that in mind. One is respect for people, whether it's Gen Y, Gen Z, or maybe if you say Gen Z minus 1 or the baby boomers, the respect for people continue to exist. The second thing that is there is need for money. I don't think that has changed. People can say many things that Gen Y or Gen Z don't need money, they need quality of work and things like that. A third is need to stay updated at all times has always been a need. Okay, what has changed is a lot of old wine in new bottles, a lot of new terminologies, a lot of new fundas. People talk about 39,000 feet and all that. You ask them why it is, they don't know. But these are some of the things that have changed. But what has importantly changed is that knowledge is now freely available. And more importantly, the role of HR has changed only from that aspect of not only HR, the leaders, where there are no more people who probably, I'll say, sage on the stage, but they have to be guided by your side. I think that is what has changed. So predominantly, if I had to look at it, I would like to redefine HR. This is not mine. 10 years back, I read it. No more HRD is human resources development. HRD is human response development. How do you respond to the needs of the individual in the organization, the management, the entity around you, including governmental regulations? If Uncle Sam coughs, sneezes, all of us have problems. So HRD is no more human resource development, it is human response development. How do you respond to the needs of multiple stakeholders? I think this is what I want to make.
Very interesting. So Richa, your initial thoughts?
Sure. I would agree with what Ganeshan has been saying, that the paradigm of HR has not been changing from version 1 to version 3. However, there are a lot of things that have come in new that has actually made HR kind of lose focus. Now, while technology is a great enabler, it goes in line with the style of working that Gen Y is very comfortable with, and it enables HR also to a great extent, because it gives bandwidth to the HR team to focus on the activities that can help retain the human touch element. If we see over a period of time from version 1 to version 3, while most of the things of HR remain the same, the human touch over a period of time has been declining. So I would say that technology is something that is a great enabler that would enable, say, if you look at Gen Y or the people in the organization, to see how they could, just taking an example of, say, career growth. Today, the technology is available to link all the systems of the HR processes where Gen Y can actually log in to see that where does he want to see himself 3 years from now. What are the competencies available, what are his competencies at this stage to reach a position X in 2 years' time? What are the competencies he needs to develop? What is the support that he requires from the organization? What are the competency development programs? So these are the good things that technology has enabled, which probably was not there 15 years back. So while all these things are there, HR needs to align on one side technology and retain the human touch.
Okay.
Yeah. To start, I come from the infrastructure and construction background, and while I do agree with my co-panelists that some of the basic fundamentals remain, but still in project or infrastructure, which is basically project management, there are definitely certain, very clear distinctive features, and I think the HR which we are talking about today, needs to get customized or need to get really, fine-tuned. In fact, needs to really fit into the project management itself. So like in fact, project management developed slowly over a period of time, and it grew into what is now known as PMBOK, or Project Management Body of Knowledge. What is not happened is the Project Management HR Body of Knowledge, or PM HRBOK. I think later on maybe I'll be able to expand it a little more. But essentially, the way HR, yes, the values are the same, but how you handle the function, how you really execute the function has undergone some change, has undergone in fact later on substantial changes in the project management scenario, and more so today when we are talking about India 3, in the requirements for HR within the project management setting are different, and that requires to be addressed, and that requires new set of capabilities which we can talk about.
Thank you. Arukya, would you?
Thank you, and good evening, everybody. Okay, I want to share that we are in a world of information economy driven by a volatile and uncertain economy, which is a very complex subject to deal with. So for me, 1 and 2 is irrelevant. I don't even talk about it. I don't even think about it. So what is important for me is 3 and to 5. So I'm talking about a new scenario, 3 to 5, which is probably not, we've not discussed. What is 5? Then we'll come back to 3. 5 is what we say, India 2030. India 2030 is what we talk about. India becomes the 3rd largest economy in the world, contributing to 1/3 of the world new workforce that is added into the global workforce. Now, if we have to reach to 2030, we are at 2013. So we have to start right today to reach 2030, which is 3rd largest. And we are competing against the global economies. So how I see this India 3 is a little different. I don't go back to 1 and 2. I see 3 to 5. So what is important today is we are in a business which is changing very fast that sometimes business are even not existing in 6 years. The best jobs in 2010, the top 10 jobs were not there in 2004. The best companies 2012 was not existing in 2000. So what we are talking about is a very fast changing world. I'm coming back to how do we deal, how HR should perceive the whole scenario is a little different. We need to think innovation. Okay, HR should drive innovation. So how do you drive innovation? There are different kinds of innovation. We talk about breakthrough innovation, frugal innovation, innovative cost measures. But what is the role of HR here? HR should create a culture of innovation inside the system that can make the workforce think innovation on a daily basis. That will keep you sustained in the market. Number one. Number two, how do we make the workforce more competitive? Because today, if you see the World Competitive Report, which is the Global Competitive Index, the top 10 countries are all Europe, but they are in recession. The top 10 countries are, in fact, 8 of the top 10 are Europe. And they are talking about workforce competitiveness. So we have to increase the competitivity of our workforce. At the end of the day, that brings value to the business. At the end of the day, that brings money to the business. So how as HR, we can contribute towards the competitiveness? So I'll touch upon that a little later, but I can give you just a glimpse of it. Today, by 2015, India, 65% of India's mobile workforce will have smartphones. So are we delivering the smart applications that can increase the productivity? You don't need to travel, the sales force need not travel back to office, you can save time. So how do we increase productivity? Number two. Number three, predictive analytics, which is very important. How do you predict in terms of your business needs from HR perspective so that your competitive is maintained, your cost is maintained, and at the end of the day, you deliver profits. We can discuss about it later during the course of the discussion.
We'll come back to you. I'm very interested on the predictive analytics bit. Murthy, your thoughts?
Yep. To make it very quick, probably it sounds like I'm echoing with some of the other panelists and maybe add a little bit of flavor to it. I was inspired by the previous speaker, about the DIL, D-I-L, and I just thought I'll prepare some ABCDs of what I thought I would, share with you folks this evening. I think, needless to mention, HR's role is changing. I just was making a note. I said, very long ago, probably not too long ago even, HR people were called as personnel managers, right? And then there came a time when people would call them human resource managers, from personnel and keeping those files, employee details to HR managers. Then came a time talking about human capital managers. People, we consider them as, hey, these are the assets, talking about innovation or intellectual property and the value that the employees add. Well, then I was really inspired by looking at the title of REACHA, which is like, transformational officer. So we think of HR's role is significantly changing and is becoming strategic, critical, and absolutely mission critical, in terms of business. So all of those, and the ABCDs that I wanted to share with you very quickly is the A being, in terms of aligning with the business and thereby becoming a business advisor and while always being an employee advocate. The role that typically HR would play often is either or. People would say, hey, this HR manager is completely aligned with the business, so maybe not an employee advocate, or he or she is an employee advocate and not as much aligned with the business. It's a good balance. So it is while aligning with the business and driving the business value, as Arugiraj has said, we need to think about this advocacy and business advisorship that one has to drive. Then the alphabet B. A HR leader is also, while I said that he's a business leader in the alignment phase, then in the branding phase, the B is branding. He or she needs to be partnering very closely and think, as a marketing officer to market the company so that you can attract the talent, so that people will see you as an employer of choice and pursue careers and join you. In terms of positioning, where do I position? Where do I attract talent from? What are the channels to recruit? What are the digital channels and what have you? So there's a lot about technology we can talk in that domain. So that's about branding. And very quickly, on the C, there are only two more. I'll stop.
Sure. No, go ahead.
Yeah,
it's interesting what you're saying.
No, thank you. Then the C is most critical, in my opinion, is the cultural agent and a change agent role that HR would play. That's where the transformation thing that I alluded to comes into picture. Not to belabor the point of the changing demographics of X, Y, and Z in any organization, and also not to ignore the fact that technology, particularly in a country like India, we have different versions of technology available. Those who have matured as a company would have legacy systems or mainframes, blah, blah, blah. And then those who are coming up with the latest and greatest, the cloud systems and agile, mobile technologies. So the technology versions are there, people versions are there, the processes are also different. Some of the performance management systems were designed way back. Who knows whether it is fitting into the curve or stack ranking. There's a lot of conversation, how much of that would fit in with today's demographics or not. So there's a lot of change that is both expected by the employees and required by the businesses, and the HR leader is pivotal and positioned. So there is nothing but change that needs to be driven. And talking about the income, somebody spoke about the income levels and it comes to pay. Today, I believe, and it's needless to mention, any young person or probably anybody in this room, if we were to compare the pay levels of the individuals today to the pay levels of their parents as one generation before, significantly different. Probably the generation before used to earn the money and spend 80% of their income on putting the food on the table. Today, probably 20% of the income would be spent on that because the changing needs, changing wants, changing demands. Probably people are thinking about the second apartment that they want to buy, or the second plot, or the second car, or what have you. So the Maslow's hierarchy of needs are still applicable, but the degree, the gradation is a notch higher, or it's different. The last one, D, in terms of developing or grooming the talent, and the change, the part of the change that happens there is in terms of the learning or the attitude of the people. The very less loyal, very highly demanding, and very low attention span generation that we are dealing with. So these people would want things in snippets, SMS codes, or videos, or 1 byte, learning bite-sized videos and all that. So in this attention deficit span generation, and which is less loyal, and people are learning from anything but the classroom. So if you make them sit in a classroom or in a conventional training mode and tell them this is what you need to learn, it doesn't go through their head. So I think a lot of change is happening. So as a HR leader or a transformational leader, we are not caught, but we are positioned to drive very strategic change for the business. And these are the ABCDs I thought: align, advise, advocate, brand, culture, and develop.